After the CDC recommended booster shots for some Americans, confusion still remains regarding eligibility and rollout of a third Pfizer vaccine. Join us now, Dr. Scott Gottlieb, former FDA commissioner, CNBC contributor. He also serves on the boards of Illumina and Pfizer. His new book, Uncontrolled Spread, Why COVID-19 Crushed Us and How We Can Defeat the Next Pandemic, is out now. So many nuances to the vaccine, Scott. Frustrating because the panacea we had hoped for, it's not even close. Breakthroughs and viral loads of double vaccinated people and all these things. What about a therapeutic that we could get in the form of a pill like we use with other viruses? It's definitely possible to do. Pfizer's working on one. Merck and Ridgeback are close to disrupting the replication of the virus, which turns it into, not even a serious flu almost. Plus, the viral load never gets high enough to cause those immune system problems that we get that kill so many people with COVID. That's the only way we're ever getting out from underneath this. A booster every year and another one and breakthrough cases. Vaccines aren't going to be the answer to get us back to normal.
Well, I wouldn't accept that vaccines aren't going to be the answer. We don't know what the long-term immunity is going to be, especially after you boost the population. This might be a 3-dose regimen. It might be an annualized vaccine like we take for flu. And the vaccines are holding up pretty well. They're fulfilling their original premise that they're preventing hospitalization, severe disease, even symptomatic disease in most cases. With respect to the therapeutic, there is news out today from Pfizer, the company I'm on the board of, about advancing their drug into clinical trials to prevent infection in close contacts. You're right, the Merck drug is advanced as well. Roche has a drug that's also in advanced development, a little further behind, but looks very promising. And then there's a whole host of drugs that are in earlier development that were engineered specifically to target this SARS-CoV-2 virus. I do believe we're going to have an antiviral, to your point. This isn't a hard virus to drug in terms of how it replicates. But I'll just offer that it's going to become increasingly difficult to run these clinical trials in a population where you have a lot of people who've been vaccinated and a lot of people who've been infected. So, running a trial to prevent progression of symptomatic disease or to prevent the onset of disease in close contacts is difficult to find treatment-naive patients or virus-naive patients in the United States now.
That's a good problem to have, obviously, Scott, that you can't find people that...
Well, it's a good problem. It's a good problem to have if the reason why you can't find people is because they're vaccinated.
Right.
It's not a good problem if it's that they're infected.
But so, aren't you? What I can't understand is the angst and the I'm seeing masks everywhere again. What we thought was going to be different. When was it? 3, 4, 5. I got it in January. So what looked like the end is nowhere near the end because of these breakthrough cases, whether they're really, really common, whether you're asymptomatic doesn't seem to matter anymore. Even if you're asymptomatic with a breakthrough case, there's still a concern that you're going to pass it to someone who's vaccinated, and then they're going to be asymptomatic, and it's going to keep getting passed until you get to someone who's either vulnerable or who's unvaccinated. And it's just like this vicious circle that it's very frustrating. And everybody's out.
Well,
maybe they're outside, maybe they're not. There's people inside. There's people in stadiums. There are people everywhere, and you get a dirty look if you're not wearing a mask, even if you're double vaxxed.
Well, look, let me just challenge that for a minute. First of all, you're right. Everyone's out. I mean, society is functioning fairly normally. I'm not going to say it's completely normal right now. But prevalence is still very high. We're still recording 2,000 deaths a day, a lot of hospitalizations. This Delta wave is still sweeping across the country. So I think that's impacting behavior and psychology. And I think it's going to take a longer time for psychology to really evolve, where we come to accept coronavirus as just a fact of life and that there's going to be infections. But that's going to be a point when prevalence really starts to decline and we start to see fewer hospitalizations, fewer deaths. We're still really in the throes of this. And then finally, I think the reason why a lot of people are overestimating the risk of coronavirus or are still concerned about it, even if they're vaccinated, know that they're not going to get very sick, but they might get a milder or asymptomatic infection, is because the kids are still vulnerable. I think once we're able to vaccinate children, once adults are able to vaccinate their kids, the anxiety about getting a breakthrough infection, knowing that you're probably not going to get very sick, your odds of getting very sick are very low if you're vaccinated, but you could bring it back into the house, I think that's going to start to resolve. So you know, this is going to be a slow evolution. You're right. We've just spent a year and a half, you know, trying to prevent every single infection. And we're going to evolve to a place where this is an endemic virus and becomes a way of life, or a fact of life, if you will. It's going to be an evolution. It's not going to happen overnight. And I don't think the vaccines are going to be what drive us out of this. It's going to be when we can vaccinate the children, when prevalence declines, when the hospitalizations and deaths start to decline. And they will. They will on the back end of this Delta wave.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.